Cross-collar chokes are a beginner BJJ student's best friend. Before we discuss why, we should first talk about what beginner Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu students might struggle with. And perhaps the biggest thing they might struggle with is their gas tank. Your beginner student does not necessarily know the adequate force required to finish a move. This could be both in the realm of sweeps and in the realm of submissions. Submissions do require a considerable amount of force to finish them off. And both of these things, both submissions and in sweeps, when we're using too much force, can result in injury if we're not using this force correctly. So we need to use the right amount of force to get the job done, and try to not use any more so that we may conserve our energy. So what makes the cross-collar choke helpful in the realm of maintaining your gas tank is that with the cross-collar choke, by its nature, we are in front of another person. And it's also, again, a choke. So, when it comes to chokes, we can't necessarily play possum with a choke, because the evidence of its working will appear on our face. And we also tend to grimace when we are being choked. But we can't control our face, like bursting out and being red. And when it's red, then we know a choke is taking place. With the cross-collar choke, we are also in front of our partner. We can look directly at them as we are doing this movement, so that way we know it's working, potentially. This is different than submitting an arm, where we need some knowledge going into it of how flexible this joint will be, and we only have our partner or our opponent to give an indication of what they are feeling. I'm speaking specifically about a Kimura, where we are taking the arm up this way, up at this kind of angle. With the Kimura, unless you have experience, you won't know initially what this person's arm can take, or what, more precisely, an average arm can take. So you don't know exactly what they're going through. Or, again, like an arm bar, we don't know if we're taking the arm this way and straightening it out. We don't know right off the bat how flexible this elbow joint is, as some people's are more flexible than others. And we only have their ultimate submission to go on. But again, with the cross-collar choke, you can see that it's working. And that makes it a little more helpful in regards to submissions. Another reason that this submission attempt is a beginning student's best friend is that it favors small movements leading up to this submission that increase the likelihood of it working. And these small movements are a good idea to understand, as they lead to kind of principles of jiu-jitsu, where we're making just small incremental improvements to lead to a really big result. This kind of differentiates it from a guillotine submission, which is a choking submission where the person's head is under my armpit in this kind of gap, and I'm using this force to try and create like a constriction on their head, and it can submit them, or we can burn out all of our energy. Not to say that there aren't small movements that make our guillotine better. The guillotine is traditionally seen as a move that people use way too much energy in trying to complete. And when they do this move, it's typically seen that they don't have anything left if this move fails. These small movements of the cross collar choke are kind of wrist focused, so I'll maneuver my wrist in such a way that I can gain a great high grip into a person's gi with both wrists, using one aspect of my wrist at first, turning my wrist this way, getting a grip, and then ultimately when I have both my grips done, I can use the opposite direction of my wrists to add to my choke. That would be my first aspect, that these small movements really help, and small movements leading to a big change is a good principle in jiu-jitsu. My next reason of these small movements helping out is that when I'm finishing this submission, my elbows are going down and they are turned towards my body. They are inward, as opposed to wringing my elbows out like this. I'm keeping my elbows tight to put my body in a mechanical advantage because I'm stronger if my elbows are closer to my body. And that's a principle that applies to many different martial arts. When I'm striking, for instance, I want my elbows in because I can ultimately apply greater rotational force if my elbows are turned in. Starting out, I can rotate much greater and ultimately have more power. Also, it's good for defense. Would be another reason you want your elbows in. Another reason that the cross collar choke is great for beginners is that the defense isn't too self-explanatory. It takes some know-how to defend a cross collar choke. The defense, for instance, isn't just tucking one's chin. When I tuck my chin against a cross collar choke, and a person has the grips correct, the grips they should have to finish it, then tucking my chin actually makes the choke much tighter, and it provides a really significant pain element to my cross collar choke, and it does not defend against it. It's commonly seen from just chokeholds in general that tucking the chin is the defense. But it won't help a person get out of this submission or defend this submission if they do that, and it might also hold like the contrary. It might get them submitted faster because it's going to hurt considerably more. So these have been my thoughts on the cross collar choke, and also stay tuned for a demonstration. So this will be your visual for the cross collar choke, and we're starting in a closed guard scenario. Now, with my left hand, I'm going to take a grip on the collar. I am then going to open up this collar so that I can get as deep a grip as I can manage with my right arm. I am not pulling down because that closes the collar off and will limit the amount I can get my right hand in. It'll make it more difficult. So I'm opening it up and getting my nice deep grip into this collar. Next, as my left hand is still on this spot, I'm going to reach in and through to get my grip on the opposite side of the collar. So now I can control both aspects. In order to get as deep of grips as possible, I'm taking my wrist and I'm rotating it inwards. That will allow me to get my grip much deeper into this collar. Next, when I'm coming to finish the movement, I am first going to bring both of my wrists downwards. This will create a compression, and this will create your visual of whether or not this move is being successful. After this, if this movement isn't enough to finish this person, I can then start bringing his head down towards my chest. I am not flaring my elbows, as this makes my body weaker. My arms are weaker from this position. When my elbows are near to my body, they're stronger here. And I'm bringing this down, and I'm finishing my choke here. So this has been your visual for the cross collar choke. And I hope you have liked this video and that everything makes sense to you. But I would wish that you consider subscribing for more content and stay tuned for future updates. Thanks.